And welcome back to my channel. So today I am doing shock horror, an everyday makeup tutorial, which is going to be solely based around drugstore makeup, specifically Primark makeup, because as you guys know, I did a Primark haul not too long ago and I really wanted to show you guys some of the products that I got in action. So quite a lot of what I'm wearing today is Primark, like this palette right here, which is called Bronze, the Bronze palette. Such good quality. I was actually really impressed considering it was the first time I'd ever used it, and I was just like, wow. And yes, I have got grey eyes because August is grey eye month for me, so I'm wearing colour blend contact lenses in the shade grey. They are prescription, so I got them from Specsavers. I have put on some very light eyelashes, but that is a personal preference kind of thing. For a lot of people, every day does not always require wearing eyelashes, so that's just down to you. You can choose to do that or not. And the same goes for liquid eyeliner. I did a really small flick, which for me, as you guys know, I do like quite a intense and large flick, so it's quite small for me. And rather than go for the typical nudie kind of everyday look, I wanted to go for something kind of bronzy and still quite summery. So I've kept the lips like really juicy and glossy looking. So that's it. So I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.
Hello everybody. So first I'm going to be priming my face using Primark's primer water. Unless stated otherwise, I'm using a Primark makeup. So just spray your face and then just kind of pat it down just to make sure it's like stuck. And then I'm using the eyeshadow primer to prime my eyes so that my eyeshadow stays in place all day long. This only costs like £1 and it's a really good primer, by the way. I think I've nearly finished mine, but it's excellent. Then for the face, I'm using Infallible Pro Matte Foundation by L'Oreal in the shade Caramel Beige, and I am just dotting it all over my face. This is a very full coverage matte foundation, and because I want it to be a bit more of a natural everyday look, I am mixing it with the Radiance drops and I am blobbing it all over my face. Obviously it's oil, so it's very runny. You can see the fear in my eyes as I start to apply it and it's starting to drip everywhere. And then I'm getting the brush, which is the Real Techniques Expert Face Brush, or it's actually the stippling brush. What's wrong with me? I haven't used that brush in so long I've forgotten the name. Anyway, and I'm blending it all out, and as you can see, because of the oil, it's giving a much more natural glowy sort of finish rather than a straight up matte one, which it would have been with just the foundation on its own. This is my favourite drugstore foundation, by the way. I love it. And then for the eyebrows, I'm using Soap & Glory's Brow Archery in the shade Dark Chocolate. This is basically a brow pencil. This is a drugstore version, I would say, of Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz. So I am just very gently filling in my brows, giving it a more natural and softer look than I normally would do. My brows can be quite strong sometimes, but if you use a brush and just use a very light hand as I am doing, you can give it a much more natural everyday kind of look, which is obviously what I'm going for. So I'm just doing very short strokes into my eyebrows, then I'm using the spoolie end to brush it out. Now to carve out my eyebrows, I'm using Bourjois Radiance Reveal Concealer. Any concealer will do, to be honest. The shade I'm using is 02 Beige. I'm using a concealer brush just to carve out my eyebrows. I can't help it, this is a habit of mine now that I do this all the time, just to make them really neat and tidy and sharp looking, hey. And basically just running it underneath the eyebrows to tidy them up. I think I had a few hairs there, which concealer is great at covering, so if you haven't plucked them or anything. And then I'm just going to be using the same foundation brush to blend out the top part of the area into the foundation, and then on the rest of my eyes I use my fingers just to blend it out. It's easier to use your fingers than to use a brush, so you don't end up accidentally putting concealer back onto your eyebrows, which is obviously what you don't want to do. And then I am using the Pro Concealer by LA Girl. It's a little bit old, which is why it was really thick, which is why I was making that really weird face. Obviously, you should throw your makeup away after a certain amount of time, which I stupidly did not do. So I am using that, and then I'm also going to be using the Radiance Reveal Concealer by Bourjois, again because it's a lot more runny and it's a lot newer as well, meaning I will easily be able to kind of blend it all out with a beauty blender. Now to set all the concealed areas, I'm using my HD finishing powder by NYX in the shade Banana, and I am setting it all with a Real Techniques contour brush, which if you guys have watched my tutorials for a while, you will know it is one of my all-time favorite brushes. Before anybody says anything, my foundation is actually a bit dark for me, and all this concealing and stuff is obviously highlighting the areas of my face which I want illuminated. And then to set the face, I'm using my Airspun Coty powder, and I am going to set my foundation with a Sigma large powder brush, and as you can see, it is going to slowly make my skin look a little bit fairer. I know people seem to be obsessed with my foundation right now, but this foundation is actually dark for me. It's equivalent to an NC42 and I'm an NC40, but when you apply fresh translucent powder, which is obviously not completely translucent, you will look a little bit white for about 10-15 minutes before the natural heat in your skin tones it all down and makes it settle. Now I'm going to be using the bronze palette from Primark. They don't have names, so first I was going to use this, then I realized I was going to use the actual white shimmery shade, and I am applying it to my brow bone as a brow bone highlight. I love using brow bone highlights in shimmery shades because I think it really makes it stand out. Then I'm using that tan shade that you saw, and I'm using a Morphe M330 brush, and I am just going backwards and forwards in the crease in windshield wiper motions to blend it all out, making sure it's blended into that highlight above so there's no harsh lines. Then I'm going to be using the Revlon cream eyeshadow, the Revlon Color Stay cream eyeshadow, and it's got a little brush with it. It's in the shade 700, I think it's like a gold. I'll list it below. It's a cream eyeshadow, and I'm using the funny little brush to apply it all over the lid, and then I'm using my finger to blend it all out so that there are no lumps or bumps which can happen with cream eyeshadows. And then to set it, I'm using this bronzy shade from the bronze palette, and I'm applying it all over the lid with an eye fluff brush from Royal Langnickel. This is the first time I'm using the bronze palette, so I was really impressed by the pigmentation of these shadows as well. Considering this eyeshadow palette is £3, I was really impressed with it, and it really set the cream shadow underneath nicely. And then to get rid of any harsh lines that may be lurking around, I'm just using the same Morphe brush just to go backwards and forwards quickly to make sure it's all nice and smooth. Then I'm using the L'Oreal Brow Artist Plumper in the shade dark brown, I think it is, to set my eyebrows. This is my favorite Drugstore brow gel. It's absolutely awesome. And then I'm going to be doing my eyeliner using the NYC liquid liner, which I bought in New York and then again in Toronto. Don't know if you can buy it in the UK, but it's an excellent liner, and I'm doing a very thin liner with a very small wing, which is not normal for me, but obviously this is an everyday kind of look, so I like to believe that some people out there still like to have little wings even though it's an everyday look, because generally I wear liquid eyeliner every single day. I think my face looks weird without it. I'm just not used to it. Anyway, so the mascara I'm going to be using is a Revlon one called the Multiplier, the Mega Multiplier, and I'm just prepping my eyelashes so that I can use the Eyelure Vegas Nay eyelashes in the style Easy Elegance. They're a little bit long and wispy, but they're not very thick, so they're nice and simple to use. But obviously for an everyday look, if you don't want to use eyelashes, you don't have to. You can just use the mascara on its own. It's pretty damn good. And then I'm going to be using that same tan shade to go over my lower lash line area. I'm using a Sigma pencil brush to do this. I'm using all the shades in the eyeshadow palette. It's really, really good. And then I'm using the Cuddle Scandalized by Rimmel in the shade Black to just run it along my lash line as I always do. Then I'm using Push Up Angel by Maybelline, which, as you guys know, is my favourite mascara for the lower lash line because it's a very, very thin brush. Then I'm using the gold shade in the bronze palette, and I'm applying it to my tear duct to open up my eyes using a MAC pencil brush, one of my favourite brushes again. And voila, now the eyes are done, as you can see. So let's move on to the face. So I'm going to use again that tan shade, and I'm using a Sigma angled brush to carve out my cheekbones, bring a little bit more colour back into my face as well, make it look a lot more 3D, because when you apply foundation and then translucent powders and whatnot, it can make your face look very flat, kind of lifeless, and you need to bring back a little bit of colour. So I'm also contouring my nose slightly to make it look a little bit more streamlined, and I'm going around my hairline mostly just to make sure that any foundation is nicely blended in and it's not like a obvious line of anything, and then go underneath the chin just for uniformity, or if you want to slim down your jawline as well. I don't really need to, but I just kind of like to make it all look uniform again. And then I'm using the Airspun powder, and I'm using a Morphe contouring brush to carve out those areas where I applied the tan shade by Primark, and that is just to neaten up the contour. And then I'm just using the Real Techniques brush again just to remove the powder to make it look nice and sharp, and then I go back in with the same Sigma brush just to make sure the line's not too harsh. Now I'm using the blush and highlight palette, which is also from Primark, and I'm using that gorgeous like muted bright orange shade. It's actually really, really pigmented. As you can see, I was kind of shocked because again it was the first time I was using it, and I was like, oh whoa. I went in quite heavily because I do end up kind of brushing off parts of it. I prefer to go in quite heavy and then kind of tone it down rather than build it up because I am impatient. And then I'm using a Morphe fan brush to use the highlighting shade to apply that also to my cheekbones to give a really nice glow, but it's not too obvious or in your face, because obviously this is an everyday look, and everyday people don't want to have highlight from space because, you know, if you've got to go to work or something like that. And then I'm applying it to the bone, whatever it's called, at the top between my eyes, because I've started doing that recently. I think it looks really nice, a little bit of touch of shimmer, and then just doing the Cupid's bow as well. And now we're going to move on to the lips next. Sorry, I was just tidying that bit up. I always do that. Tidy it up, get rid of any harsh lines, use the NYX powder just to tidy up any messes, make it look all nice and neat and smooth. Now I'm using the NYX lip liner in the shade Ever. It's one of my favourite lip liners by NYX because it's the kind of shade that, it's one of those weird shades that kind of just goes with everything, if that makes sense. Like, no matter what your lip colour is, you can use the shade Ever, which the name is kind of appropriate, right? And then I'm using Little Susie Butter Lipstick. I do love NYX's butter lipsticks. I've got so many of them, and I was really happy to be able to use this again today and stay away from liquid lipsticks for a change. And then I'm using Apple Strudel Butter Gloss, also by NYX, just to lighten up the colour a little bit, to make it look a little bit more less raspberry-ish and a little bit more everyday-ish. And then just to set the face, I'm using the Primark Fix Up Workout Makeup Setting Spray. And then that is it. Voila, we are done. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. Bye!